Hello and welcome to another one of our videos where today I'm going to be talking about the order of exercises when you're working out. So this is like quite a topic that most people are probably not aware of. I see it quite often. So I'm going to explain why the order is actually quite important, and you could be making some mistakes just by, you might have the right choice of exercise but in the wrong order. So it's never easy actually choosing exercises because there's so many things to consider, like posture, previous injury, your ability to do it, tight spots, weak spots, coordination. There's just a lot of things that are involved in designing a workout. Like you really should be, just to start with, you really need to have a reason for picking your exercise. If your reason is just for variety, well, you're already off to a bad start. Then every exercise must have a reason for being there. All right, so it's always important to know what's the objective of your workout. What are you trying to achieve? What are you setting out to do? So the objective sort of sets out the sets, the reps, the rest, and of course the order of the exercises that they need to be in. So putting a difficult exercise too early or too late, or should have here too late, can be a potential disaster. But why is that? So, well, the most difficult exercises should go first, but not right, when I say first, not the first exercise, probably like the second exercise. And I'll show you an example in a second. But the reason for this is the ones that trouble you the most, the ones that give you the most difficulty, are the ones where you're going to need the most brain involved. And they're also the reason they're giving you difficulties is because there's probably a weakness. Could be a lack of stability, could be like the ligaments, tendons maybe aren't quite as mobile as they should be, so you really want to get into them before they get too cooked, because if you get into them when they're too cooked, they can't do, well, they already couldn't do it very well, now they've got no chance of doing it very well. So it's really important to sort of pick the ones that you need really early on. And obviously here I'll put here, make sure you do a good warm-up first and do mobility work if you need mobility work, that is, before you get straight into strengthening. So but the tricky question is, how do you define difficult? Well, it's impossible for me to sort of say a clear cut what difficult could be, because there could be a lot of things for that, but it's basically what's difficult for you, and you will know what they are because it's usually the exercise you hate to do. It's the one you probably leave out anyway. You might do a couple of them at the end just to say you've done it, but you really didn't do a very good job of them. A lot of people avoid the things they should be doing, and if it's back pain, they're avoiding deadlifts. If they've got a leg weaknesses, they definitely avoid single leg stuff. Probably hate lunges. May enjoy squats, but they're really going to get very little from squats. It's going to be the ones that you don't like doing that you need to do. Right? So we classify the integrated movements as the more complex and the ones that should precede any isolated exercises. So example of integrated are squats and lunges, deadlifts, wood chops, single legs, chin-ups, push-ups, contralateral cable exercises like pushes and pulls and things like that. Hang cleans are very these are really complex exercises. You wouldn't want to be doing that after you've done a stack of these things. So sort of put a picture here. The more brain involved, the higher up it needs to go in the workout. All right. So again, you could be awesome at front squats. So it's not a hard exercise for you. Your technique's fine. Your brain's not that much challenged, but your brain's definitely challenged on this one, even though it's a body weight. You would be putting this one before that one, because even if you're a little bit fatigued here, your skill level is quite high. The skill level here is terrible. So you wouldn't want to be doing 5 sets of these and then trying to do the one that you struggled with on your best day after you've just done 5 sets of an exercise to fatigue you. All right, so can you start to see how that can vary greatly depending on the person. All right, so the isolated exercises, these can be very useful, but I see these used very poorly, especially in rehab, where people will pick up, they'll say, oh, you've got a glute medius weakness, so let's give you some clams, and we'll do 3 sets of 20 and all this sort of hip and glute work, and then they'll try to do a squat. It's like that person's got no chance of doing a squat because you've just completely fried the area that you already knew was weak, you've actually just completely used it up. They've got no chance of recruiting their glutes in the more difficult exercise. Same thing for the shoulder. So like rotator cuff exercise here, you wouldn't want to do this at the beginning, because if I need to do a pushing or pulling movement where my rotator cuff's involved as a stabilizer, and I've just completely destroyed it, and it was already weak to begin with, now I'm risking hurting my shoulder when I was actually using what I thought was preventing an injury. I'm now actually going to create one. Abdominal exercises, again, these exercises are really overdone and really abused. You know, if you're doing this sort of stuff like abdominal work, great exercise, this one. But if you're doing a heap of them, fry your abs, and then you need to do a deadlift or a squat, you're going to really risk serious injury to your spine, because your abs are pretty much gone. All right, they've got no chance of being used in the bigger workout. So it's always important to do these as isolated things last. All right, so you may use them earlier in the workout, but only as an activation drill. So what I mean by that, I wouldn't take the muscle to fatigue. I might just do like a handful, just to sort of make the person aware of where what we want them to activate. But that's all I want to do. I don't want to take it to any fatigue level. I want to do it. I want to get it all done in the bigger exercises where they work as they're meant to work. They don't work in these isolated things anyway. They work best in the integrated movements, which is how the systems design them. So let's have a look at an example here. So the deadlift. So if I did a stack of clams, hip extensions, or any other type of glute isolation exercise, and then I go to do the deadlift, I now really cannot do this very well, because I've just taken my powerhouse, my engine room, and pretty much used it up. So now I'm going to have to compensate around that, because I don't have it. I'm going to search for something else to do the work, maybe hamstrings. Maybe I'm going to round my back out because I'm using my hamstrings. Maybe I'm going to try and change my position to use my quads. I'm going to completely ruin the exercise, not because I wasn't good enough, but because I've just chosen a poor order of exercise. Let's say I did ab work before all that to sort of get my abs all toughened up and ready. Now I've just fatigued my abs. It can't stabilize my spine because it needs to hold my lumbar spine stiff. I need huge activation through my abdominal wall to do that. If I fatigue them too early from doing garbage abdominal work, now my back is going to flex. So what I didn't want to happen is now going to happen, because I've just completely fried my abdominal stabilizers. All right, so can you see how I would not want to do either of these things before that? I would do this, and then I might do them afterwards. I might do something to activate, but I wouldn't exhaust. All right, so it's a good example of what I see all the time. So let's have a look at an example of workout I used when I had a shoulder injury. My objective here was to restore mobility to the thoracic region, because I'd really lost a lot of that, which had then compromised my stability at the scapular and the glenohumeral joint. And the issue I had the most was with pushing actions. So my objective was, my main thing in the strengthening thing was to find a way to strengthen the pushing movement. I also wanted at the same time maintain the strength and stability of my legs due to previous knee injury I had the year before, an ACL injury. So I needed to make sure I was keeping that in check while I could continue to work on that. Any problems that I had here was going to make this worse. So my difficult exercise was with pushing actions. I know I needed to free up a few trigger points and tight spots before moving that, so I was going to use some of these drills between sets. All right, so this is what I did. So I warmed up, say, rowing machine, or I did a jog for a few minutes, 5 minutes or something, just something to warm my body up. Then I would use some foam rolling, did some mobility and stability drills as the ones that I identified that I need. So this was a key one for me for the thoracic region. This was a good one for my ankle and my hip here, and good one for the hip and the thoracic. And this is a good stability drill to get upward rotation. So I was using these regularly between sets of various exercises. So once I'd done all of that, then I got into a couple of activation exercises, so a couple of simple pulling ones, just to get my arm ready for the opposite action, which was going to be the pushing one. And I was trying to be aware of good posture. So this is good exercise for pretty much shoulder and thoracic, but good hip mobility. So sort of progression of this. And the single leg squat was just maintaining my stability and getting my brain ready for what I needed to do. All right, so I did 2 sets of those. 8 to 12 reps took me a few minutes. All right. Then into the main part of my workout. So this is the order I use. So the deadlifts, I love deadlifts, but I've had a bit of a flat back posture all my life, so I've always struggled to do big loads on these. So I enjoy them, but I know I have to be very careful. If I lose any little bit of my brain on this, I'm going to risk a back injury. So I always put this one first. I put this one first also for a reason, to set my scapula and my posture in a position that I could do this one, because I knew this one was going to hurt if I didn't get it right. All right, so I did this one first, 4 sets of 4 to 6. I never do deadlifts for too many reps, because it's really an exercise better suited to heavy lifting, not trying to endurance it. All right, so then I move straight into the one that troubles me. All right, so I'm really set for it now. I've mobilised everything, I've stiffened the things I needed, I'm in good posture, so now it gives me a good chance to get this one done exactly the way I want to. And I would rotate either from a single arm one sometimes to a 2-arm one sometimes. And then eventually I'd progress to a dumbbell. I may even do push-ups sometimes as well. But basically the pushing action, so regardless of what it is, that was the one that troubled me. Then the Turkish get-up. Now this was another one that was a big one. This is a very important one for me. I found this one was actually probably the key to my shoulder being back to full strength, but I found it very difficult to do. I found it just really struggled with this exercise. In the past I'd never struggled with it. Just found so many issues with this hand on the floor and trying to get my thoracic. It was everything I needed all in one exercise. So I sometimes even maybe did that after the deadlift. Right, so either one of these two was my 2 troubling ones. Then I moved into front squats. So front squats, again, quite a difficult exercise, and then it gave me a bit of leg strength. Then I moved into some multi-direction lunges, this specifically for the ACL stuff that I'd had, and sometimes single leg deadlift, so I might have mixed between the two. Then I would do bent over row. This sort of towards the end, because I had too much strength in my upper back area that was actually inhibiting me from doing the pushing action correctly. So I didn't mind that I was tired by this stage for the hip, because I had too much strength on this one. I was like almost double the strength on this than that. Can you see, like, if I had done that too early, I just exacerbate everything I already had, which then makes that worse. So I actually deliberately wanted that towards the end. And the last one, which is more of I was getting fatigued by this stage, so you can see the sets I started after the first few, 4 sets, these ones were only 3. This is more a specific abdominal exercise, so I did that only 3 sets, and that's why it's towards the end. And then lastly, if I was not too fatigued and I had a bit of time, I might have done some yoga push-ups, maybe some hip extensions for some glutes, maybe even some single arm stability or even lower abdominal exercise. And that would be a workout that I did specifically for a shoulder problem. And I did a warm-up set of each one of the main ones, about half of what I'd normally do, just like to sort of rehearse what I wanted. All right, so that's a good example of workout that how you would structure the order specifically for a reason. All right, so if you had any comments about this or questions, check out the description under this video. It has a lot of links to articles about stuff I've talked about there. If you want to know a bit more about the shoulder stuff that I did, there's full workouts in here in our report that goes into massive detail, and then our little black book has 100 workouts, so all sort of set out and laid out for you. All right, so anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that video, and that's giving you a bit of extra direction on how you want to design workouts and exercises in the right order to get the best result for you. All right, so hope you enjoy that, and we'll see you on our next video.